scenario, when I want to restart, how do you suggest? So can the experts guide us, and that will be helpful to all our majority of clinicians or who are practicing in a sole alone clinic.
I think a very practical example what you have given, Dr. Ketan. I would request Vishalji, would you be able to take this question?
Yeah, thanks, Mihir. Thanks, Dr. Mehta. Thanks everyone on Team IMA, Team HPI, and Team ISHRE. It's wonderful to be here on a Sunday and talk about healthcare guidelines from air conditioning and ventilation. As correctly stated by people speaking before me, that these guidelines are basically all based on the feedback and the queries and the questions and the doubts that we were getting from the entire healthcare fraternity. And it was our duty and responsibility, a very, very small contribution to the entire healthcare fraternity, to ensure that we give them the right advice, the right guidelines, so that they can put them in practice. One thing before I answer the specific question, I'd like to just highlight over here is that this book is basically a technical guideline. ISHRE is a technical body. We are not individual professional consultants as a technical body. In our individual capacities, professionally, we are doing various kinds of work, whether consulting or designing, manufacturing, contracting, etc. But as ISHRE, we basically are a technical body. And it's not that each solution is common to all problems. Every problem, every clinic, every hospital, every institution will be specific. We are giving general directions, we're giving guidelines on the right methodology to be followed, but specific to each application, it's better always to engage the right person who could guide you based on your building, your design, your specific requirement, because it can never be the same solution fitting all applications. So that's something which I would request you to keep in mind when going on these guidelines. Specific question on Dr. Mehta, which is a very, very common question when we all go around all over. There are multiple of clinics, which is a one doctor chamber with a waiting area of 10 to 15 people, 20 people who can wait, and a chamber inside for the doctor to consult patients to consult the doctor. It's a very common thing. Most of them will have either a window AC or could have a split AC installed in both the rooms. And what do? So firstly, what solution that we're going to tell you today has nothing to do with only COVID. Ventilation is a requirement, COVID or no COVID, because there are a lot of other healthcare diseases, problems, etc., which are there existing even pre-COVID. And a lot of them are possibly infectious in nature, are possibly things which you would not want to spread from one person to other person. That is where this word called hospital-acquired infections came into being, globally HAI, because there are things in the air. Air conditioning is contributing to one small part of HAI. There are a lot of other issues also. But so you need to be having some protocols in place irrespective of the no COVID. And the biggest protocol over there is some sort of a ventilation. So I understand that you could have a situation where you do not have an opening to outside. But as I heard from you, that if you have two windows, ACs installed, that means you do have at least one wall in your premises which is opening to the outside. So that's the only way you would have installed window ACs. So all that you need to do is create a small puncture in that wall at some level, higher level up, and install a small technical exhaust fan. If you do not have a toilet, if you have a toilet, do it through the toilet. That's the best. Have exhaust done through the toilet. If you do not have an attached toilet, there's no big deal. Just install a small fan above at a higher height, which is taking the air out. Keep your door open. If you cannot have any other window, any other opening, keep a main door open slightly. Basically, it's very simple physics that you've got to create a path of air to move in and get out. And preferably at opposite ends so that it covers the entire room. It carries the air of the entire room and goes out. And the purpose is that we are able to replace the air in that room, whether it's a waiting room or your chambers, at least once in every hour. If you could do it up to 2 times or 3 times an hour, it would even be better, but at least once per hour. So it's a very simple calculation. Exhaust fan needs to be put in over there. We have to do mechanical exhaust. Just simple exhaust, frankly, will not be of great benefit. So it is a simple thing of puncturing a wall and taking out. The second thing that you need to keep in mind, and which in our book, in our guideline document, we have also talked about some sort of a draft of air. Because when you have these window ACs or split ACs, there's a draft of air. It should be directed, because even in the window AC, you can direct the air a little left or right, basically, to ensure that the air is not hitting a patient directly. But what happens if it's hitting a patient directly and that patient has carrying some kind of a problem, whether it's an infectious disease or anything else, that air can pick up those particles and travel to the person next, sitting next and next. So it's advisable to direct the air either up or to a different direction horizontally so that it's not hitting into every patient. As I'm answering this, I'm reading a question over here which somebody is talking about what happens when you open an outside door and you might have outdoor pollutants come in. Yes, it is a problem. But the problem is, which is the bigger of the two problems? At this point, it is important to create some sort of a ventilation. Ideal situation would be to have fresh air coming in through a filter. That's the ideal situation, but we are today not sitting in an ideal world. If you could do some sort of filtration in the fresh air coming in, perfectly fine. But I'm sure in such busy chambers as Dr. Mehta must be a very busy doctor, the main doors would be opening anyway multiple number of times. So that issue of outdoor air coming in would anyway be there. But there are ways of handling it. If you can bring in mechanically, you can bring in fresh air and exhaust it through the main door. That is the best. That you bring in air from a point mechanically into the chambers or into the waiting room, take it out from the main door. You're achieving purposes of pressurizing positively that area. You're also not ventilating. You're also diluting the air. So you're achieving both purposes. So these are the two solutions available to you, along with the draft of air, and you can move on from there.
Yeah, thank you, Vishal. It was a fantastic agreement. And the point which you brought out, especially about the direction of the AC, probably that we can definitely, the easiest thing which you can do, rather than direct blow on the patient side, if it is a lateral or upward, that would definitely be helpful. A very good response which we got it. Okay, we have another query coming up from a private practitioner who says that he has got a 30-bedded private hospital, and his is a totally non-COVID hospital, does not admit any COVID patients. He has got 20 beds kept in the separate wards, so which are in the form of a general ward where 4 or 5 patients are there, twin sharing and an individual room. And then there are 10 beds in ICU also. Now, in today's time, what is happening, though the hospital is only admitting non-COVID patient, this particular hospital, but even in today's scenario, we are seeing so many who are getting admitted as a non-COVID case, but when we send a COVID test, and in fact, to our surprise, 20% of them are still turning out positive who does not have any symptom signs suggestive of COVID. So that means 1 out of every 5 patients which we are admitting, which are not suspected of COVID, still turning out positive. So obviously across the globe, everybody has started taking that even if we are a non-COVID center, we will take each and every patient as a COVID positive unless proven otherwise. Now, in this scenario, what are your recommendation technically? Because now this hospital has got all the rooms which are AC, which are in wards. It is a window AC which has been put, and in ICU, the split AC has been put. So here, what will be the recommendation? And I'm sure these are the scenarios when we go to tier B, tier C cities in various IMS smaller chapters where people have got these nursing homes of 30 to 40 beds. So your expert advice on this.
So I'll let Gautam also come in specific on the ICU part, but as far as the wards go, see, it's a very odd situation that we're facing today. Normally, you would always expect a ward to be positively pressurized. Means you're bringing in fresh air from outside and keeping the room positively pressurized. But if it is coming to a situation that in the same ward, you are assuming that you will have a COVID positive patient and non-COVID positive patient, it's a very difficult situation to handle. First of all, it's not advisable. You should not have a positive and a non-COVID patient in the same room, because whatever you might do with the air conditioning, whatever you might do, the chances of spreading the infection from the positive to the other person is very, very high. So the best way is to filter out, screen out at the time of admission and have the patients bifurcated into separate rooms, different facilities at that very point. In case somebody is not able to do it, though technically not advisable from our side as an air conditioning technical sciences, it's not advisable. In case somebody is doing it, that means you have to follow the worst of the two protocols. The worst of the two protocols would be you'll have to create a negative pressurization in that situation. If it is coming to that, and we would normally then in such a ward where you have a COVID patient, frankly, a window AC is not really a good scenario. So one scenario which we have put into a book also, if you will read a document of healthcare, is we're talking of creating an enclosure around a bed. So when you make each and every bed in a ward as a self-contained enclosure, which you have a kind of a enclosure around it, the PVC strips or PVC sheets hanging on all sides of the bed. That means that each bed has now become in its own a zone. And if from each bed you exhaust the air out, connected to a HEPA system, HEPA fan section, and either exhaust it out or you can even recirculate the air once it's through a HEPA. That is then giving you an opportunity that in the beds where you have a COVID patient, you connect it to the HEPA unit, and the other ones can continue to be in the normal circumstances. But going back to my opening statement, it is technically not advisable to mix in a ward a COVID and a non-COVID patient at one point. It could be very, very dangerous. Gautam, you could add on that and on the ICU part that you would want to.
Yeah, before that, I would just correct Vishalji. It is not that we are keeping those patients mixed together, but what happens is when two patients come on the same day, both are suspected as not having COVID and having some other issues, have been admitted, say for example, in a twin sharing bed. And routinely we send the COVID. On the second day, we come to know one of them is positive and another is negative. So it is not that somebody who is positive is kept along with a negative patient. But this is also the scenario. And same thing now happens now for this setting. In ICU, there may be various cubicles will be there where obviously one patient is isolated from others from three sides, but the one side will be common, open to all. So like in a 10-bedded ICU with a various multiple split ACs are put there, what will be your recommendation?
Gautam, would you like to take that, please? You'll have to unmute, please. Gautam, unmute.
Gautamji, unmute, please.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Basically, when we talk of ICUs, and in today's context, we have to go by what Dr. Ketan said, that it's quite possible that the patient may turn out to be an infectious patient with COVID or something else. And the net result is that we'll have to treat that area as an infectious point of view area. Okay. So now from infection point of view, if you see, and if you look at ICU per se, this air conditioning system that is required calls for a high level of filtration, which normally mandates an air handling unit. For example, you have to have filters like MERV 7 and MERV 14 and things like that. And most of them don't exist in the normal ICUs that we are talking of right now. The most common systems that are used in many of the smaller nursing homes would be split units, window ACs, and cassettes. And that's the ground reality. And we are trying to find out what best can be done in this particular scenario. So to start with, the first problem is that these areas do not have the required number of fresh air changes. That is what we call the ventilation, to get the bioload down inside these areas. It is the fresh air that gets this particular bioload down, and by dilution. And it is very imperative that we should induct a certain amount of fresh air for, getting that down. The second part is that, if we say that this area is to be treated as a potentially infectious area, then we should ensure that the area is under negative pressure. So that is the second part. So you are inducting fresh air, and also you're going to ensure that it is under negative pressure. When you're doing this negative pressure, you have to be mindful that it is going to draw in air from the adjoining areas. And when you're doing that, you have to make sure that the adjoining areas are clean. If the adjoining area itself is dirty for whatever reason, then all that dirty air is going to get into this ICU, which will be a very bad thing. So that's the second point, that when you're doing negative pressure, please ensure that the adjoining area is kept, very clean. So these are two points that go hand in hand. Then we come to certain type of nursing homes which do have an air handling unit. And if they do have an air handling unit, they should look at in terms of, having higher level of filtration. Most of them would be having, let's say, only MERV 7 filters. You would recommend that go for your MERV 14 filters if that system can take that kind of a thing. And then you also try to install a UVGI for the cooling coil and the drain pan and all that. That improves the air quality a great deal. These are the basic things that you could do with the existing systems. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so probably you gave us the solution. So what we see that at each and every level there has to be some minor modification which needs to be done by all of us, be it in a OPD setting or be it in a in-hospital setting with the ward setting or even in the ICU, because the idea is, number one is to prevent the spread of COVID-19, or for that matter, now we realize for the other infectious agents also that can be do. And the second is to have the circulation of fresh air, which can be definitely of much importance. Now that's a very good information. Now, as opposed to this, we would even like to have an idea about what happens to a tertiary care center or a multi-speciality hospital who are 100 plus beds. And we have seen even those setup are there even owned by a private team in various peripheral hospitals with a centrally AC hospital. And now, since so many of those larger hospitals, the government have pressurized them to convert it into a COVID center, COVID hospital. So now government is just putting a pressure, okay, you make it your hospital as a COVID hospital. Now this hospital, say for example, 100-bedded hospital is a centrally AC, converting them into COVID hospital where only COVID positive patients will be admitted, be it in the ward, those who requires, those who are relatively stable and unstable will go to ICU. So what will be your recommendation for now the setup with a central AC for the wards as well as for ICU?
When you say wards, it would be including those, individual rooms as well. I would.
Correct. Yes.
So when you say individual rooms, typically you got those, what Vishal just pointed out. You would be having room air conditioners or split ACs or something like that.
No, it will be centrally AC, which is
central AC. Okay. Okay. See, here with central AC, the main point is that with central AC, you will be having false ceiling return. You've got this ducted supply and you've got the, false ceiling return. The false ceiling return is one of the most scary things because it's the false ceiling where, all these, pathogens and all are going to get deposited, and then it will be on and on. In one particular room, a patient is recovering and then he gets a fresh strike of new pathogens coming from another room. So for such scenarios where you've got, central AC, it is, you'll have to ensure that there is no return return coming through the false ceiling. That is point number one. So for that, you'll have to block up the, the false ceiling the return air grills. Only the fresh air comes. That is the supply air comes. What that means is that you'll have to increase the fresh air quantity. And if that is the case, it may have to be augmented with certain amount of cooling for the fresh air. And whatever gets supplied into the room, you'll have to literally exhaust it only. That's the only way that you can handle the wards with central air conditioners. Because if you try to recirculate in this particular scenario, you'll be really very badly off. So that is as far as your wards is concerned. When you've got multiple patients inside a particular ward, and let's say that you've got already an air conditioning system which is dedicated to that particular ward. Let's talk of this particular system where you've got 30 beds or 40 beds and you've got a air conditioning system that is, catering to that. There is a simpler solution that is being, promoted these days in having tents across beds and isolating the beds. And then you have a negative pressure only for the bed, and you have an exhaust for that with a small, exhaust module. When you have something like a, what they call H13 filter for the exhaust, then that exhaust can be released back into the ward itself and go into the air conditioning system. So it does not really put an additional burden on your air conditioning system, as well as it ensures that by and large the entire ward is much safer for both the nurses and other healthcare workers, doctors, and the patient. Of course, they are under negative pressure, so they are far better off. So I think these kind of systems will have to be promoted, that this is going to be much safer.
Right. Thank you. So probably that gives an idea that, at every juncture, there needs to be, before you convert your center into a COVID, proper preparation and little modification in the air ventilation system needs to be done for a better outcome and better control of this COVID-19, which is a prerequisite. And probably we, as a medical practitioners, don't go into the so much minor intricacies of these issues, and then we face the problem, because obviously it inadvertently it may happen that the spread of the disease may happen. So that's a very important point over here. There is another question which is coming up, which has said that in a small setup with with example ENT surgeon or ophthalmologist having a daycare practice, where the patient is admitted for few couple of hours and get discharged. So here, what should be the air ventilation provision in their operation theater? One, when they are operating actually, so that is during surgery, and what can be done in off surgery hours for this OT, because this is going to be OT, and again it will be a surgery of non-COVID patients, be it in a daycare of ENT or ophthal. So during surgery, how to manage the air ventilation in OT and off surgery hours? Mihir, you can take give it to your panel.
Sir, Shankar sir, would you be able to take it, or Gautam sir?
Meher, I'll take it, Meher. Yeah.
Yeah, Shankar sir.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. See, regarding the operation theaters, we need to look at 2-3 angles from it. Point number one, we will have to ensure that although that, like Dr. Ketan said earlier, there are a lot of asymptomatic cases, and there are a lot of cases where even if the patient is tested and found to be COVID negative, after about 3-4 days, when the situation changes and a retest is done, there are several cases where the patients have reported as COVID positive, and then it puts the entire healthcare facility into a lot of stress and emergency kind of a situation. So the situation today is that every patient that you need to work on, especially if the contact time with the patient is long, that the patient needs to be treated as a COVID patient, and then we do all the other facilities and methods suitably. When we talk about the operation theater, the first point is to ensure that the surgeon and the operating team is protected, which means even if it is a situation that the patient happens to be COVID positive, the environment of the OR should not be should not get the viral loads, the viral aerosols. Loads should not get into the operating room environment, number one, which will obviously protect the healthcare and the surgical team. Then point number two is we want to ensure that the air from the operation theater, normally the operation theaters are positively pressurized. In order to reduce the incidence of surgical site infections, the operation theaters are normally positively pressurized. Even going by the NABH standards, we are required to have positive pressure in the OTs with respect to the adjoining areas like corridors and other scrub area rooms and things like that. So what happens in this COVID scenario is that if the room is positively pressurized, if the OR is positively pressurized, and if the patient happens to become a COVID positive patient, then there is a possibility that during an aerosol generating procedure on the patient, there could be a case that the aerosols come out into the theater, and because of the positive pressure, it starts spreading out into the other areas of the hospital, which is what we need to protect ourselves against. So there are two options that we can resort to in this type of a scenario. One is, which many hospitals are trying to do, is to convert the operation theater into one that has got a negative pressure, which means we will have to take an exhaust out of that operation theater and suitably treat it through a filtration system and throw it out into the atmosphere. So to compensate for that air, the air from the corridor or the adjoining room will try to come in, and that inflow of air is going to protect the aerosol if it is going to have any viral loads from going into the other parts of the hospital. But the problem here is we are allowing the air from the other non-sterile areas of the hospital to come into the operating room, and that is likely to compromise the aseptic nature of the OR by itself. So there is another suggestion which we have also provided in the document, which is by way of providing an anti-room and using it as a sink airlock. The schematic diagram and the explanation is given in the document, which will serve both the purposes. It will ensure that the theater is positive with respect to the adjoining areas, thereby the surgical site infection possibilities are reduced, and at the same time the theater, the anti-room or the airlock room will be negative with respect to the other areas of the hospital, thereby if the patient happens to be a COVID positive patient, the aerosols will not get transferred to the other areas of the hospital, and the hospital is, the safety of the hospital is taken care of. So these two options have been given there. Supposing we have a case where there is a longer duration of a surgery which happens like 7 hours, 8 hours, 10-hour type of case, and where the aerosol generating procedures are quite intense, then we have also suggested in order to protect the surgical team because of the enhanced exposure period, we have also suggested that the provision of a aerosol box or a aerosol hood, very similar to what is suggested for aerosol barrier protection, and we have what we do for the COVID enclosures for the patients, just around the head and the neck of the patient. The hood can be provided like an aerosol box with some access ports for the anesthetist to do whatever intubation procedures are required to be done. Then that air from the aerosol box will be taken through pipes, and it will be taken through HEPA filters, and it will be brought back into the theater environment. Thereby, it saves the surgical team from the risk of contracting an infection. So these are the options. The key points are maintaining a negative pressure in the theater by providing an exhaust air path with adequate filtration, and to bring in additional fresh air or create more recycling so that there is more dilution that happens through fresh air intake and through filtration. So these are the options that we have in front of us.
Okay, thank you, Shankarji. We have a question coming up from all across India. The various delegates are joining from various parts of the country. Another common question which is coming is that for air disinfection, bipolar ionization, which has all been recommended. So can you throw some light briefly about the bipolar ionization?
Yeah. Should I take this question, Mr. Vishal? Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah. See, bipolar ionization is of course a concept, but what we are putting, which is of course useful in in remediation of bioaerosol contaminants. It is an accepted methodology, but we are suggesting ones which can be measured and proved, and what has been suggested by the WHO in the SARS Treatment Centers document March 2020. WHO has come out with a document which we have also referred in. Many inputs have been taken for this particular guideline from the WHO document, and we have referenced that document in our guidebook, and we have gone with that recommendations, and that's the reason we are not putting in the details about the bipolar ionization here. Things that can be measured and proved, and based on what WHO guideline is what we have provided here. That's the reason we are not talking much about the bipolar ionization here.
Okay, and what about UV radiation for air disinfection? And now, in fact, quite a few places they are recommending that you fit the UV lights. So how useful it is and how frequently it needs to be changed.
Okay, I'll take this question too. As far as the UVGI is concerned, we are talking about two things. One is surface contamination, the other one is air contamination in air, airborne contamination. The point about UV is it needs a reasonably good high level of exposure time for the inactivation of the bioaerosol to take place, especially all these types of virus and all that stuff. So on a surface, the exposure time can be quite long. We can expose continuously, irradiate a surface, but the radiation of air, especially moving air, in an air handling unit is very difficult because the air is moving at a very fast velocity and the exposure time is not sufficient enough. So the dosage that is required to achieve inactivation of the virus is quite tough on disinfection on moving air. However, upper room UVGI fixtures have been recommended and used in tuberculosis wards, and it has been an accepted practice for upper room UVGI fixtures. If you look at the WHO document about facilities for SARS treatment centers, it talks about UVGI, and it is talking about UVGI primarily for treatment of exhaust air, where near the patient room they have given a schematic arrangement how a separate room can be created through for the UV lights to be installed, through which the air can be taken out and exhausted out. So WHO has also specified about UVGI, but when we are using UVGI for disinfection of surfaces, like what Mr. Gautam Waliga was talking about, for disinfection of cooling coil surfaces in air handling units, it's going to work quite well. It has been extremely well proved because of the exposure time, long exposure time. But disinfection of moving air, the single pass efficiency, which means the inactivation that happens in a single pass through the UV zone, is quite low because of the very low exposure time and because of the fast moving air velocity. So UVGI, if designed properly, would be useful.
Thank you, Shankar Saab. There is one question which is there is the use of air purifiers in casualty ward. So any one of you can throw light on that, please.
Yeah, so before I get into it, I think I just want to also address one point, that a forum like what we are having today is a technical forum. It's a forum to exchange technical knowledge and comments, and I would request the participants to please respect that. This is not a forum to promote any particular personal technology or a brand. It's not the right forum. That's not what we intend to do over here, and it will be a request for those delegates to ensure that they do not promote their own product brand specific out here in this forum. It's not correct. On air purifiers, our document and we've talked of both pros and cons. I would not say cons, the pros and the safeties or the things to be kept in mind while selecting, choosing and designing an air purifier. Yes, an air purifier, if selected properly, does have and can have an impact in some areas. As we say, it's very important to understand that air purifier will just clean the air that passes through the air purifier. That's the most important thing one needs to understand. I know it's a very simple statement to make, but it's got a profound sense to it. It will only clean the air that passes through it. It's not that you put an air purifier in a room and my air and my room is cleaned out, purified in totality. No, it's not possible. So you need to select your purifier. We've given some numbers in our document from the delivery rate and the air changes required, recommended, which needs to be checked into. We've given details about various technologies that are available for air purifiers, which you can keep in mind while choosing what kind of an air purified technology, whether it is a HEPA, whether it is an ionization, or whether it's other UV, etc. We've mentioned all those details in our guidelines. It would be a very long topic to address in a small forum like this overhead today. But broadly, yes, air purifiers can be used as long as you are following the protocols and ensuring the whole methodology out there.
Yeah, thank you, Vishal. There is another question which is very interesting from Mr. Vikram. It says that instead of air conditioning a complete ward of COVID positive patients for a government hospital, which will take time, plan to have a small sealed room within the COVID ward with 100% fresh air maintained at 22 degrees centigrade for healthcare workers when heat with PPE becomes unbearable to step in for about 10 minutes and cool themselves and then continue working in the ward. Otherwise, the caregivers are collapsing due to the unbearable heat within the PPE. Plan to duct the exhaust 3 meters above the closest building suitably directed. Seek your expert views on that. It's a very, very interesting question. Anyone of you can take that.
Shankar, Gautam, anyone?
Gautam sir, you are muted.
I could take this question. Actually, it's a very, very human problem, and doctors are suffering so much. And that 10 minutes that the gentleman Vikram has told is really something that can give relief. I think it's a very valid thing. You could have such a room where person can get cooled and then go back recharged. So I think we can really look at it like that. We'll have to just look at the pros and cons before we finally conclude that this can be done, but it's a damn good idea. Thank you.
I think Ketan bhai, you had something similar in your mind.
I was just wondering, recently somebody had come out with an innovative idea, and we have seen that video had gone viral about PPE, which all of us are now using left and right whenever we are into clinical practice. And there is been somebody who had come out with the AC PPE. So the person who is wearing the PPE has got a provision for cooler air. And I think Mihir had seen that. I don't know how feasible is it, and has it come in a commercial way, or is it been in the market? But that would be a big boon for the practitioners who are more than few hours working in the hospital and all, and that would be good thing. Gautam sir, yeah.
Actually, I have come across this product on the YouTube where they have got this phase change material. You keep that phase change material inside the refrigerator for a long time, and that gets a lot of thermal inertia. And then those pads are kept into your suit, and the suit has got those small blowers, and they keep the whole suit very cool. So this is some Israeli technology that has been floating around, but it's, as I said, that time no one really put much attention to it. But these are technologies that are really good. Phase change material was what was used in those.
Okay.
There is one more question from Mr. Dilip, which says that will there be different systems for TB and COVID if OPDs are different on different days in the same 20 by 30 feet space? I think he's talking of the same OPD being utilized on a different day, one day for TB and one day for COVID. I don't know. I think it's a.
I think only a doctor can answer this.
I think you.
Because it is today's time. It is practically so difficult to segregate things. So now the universal dictum in today's time, everybody is considered as a COVID positive unless proven otherwise. So even we have started seeing the patients who are tuberculosis and are coming with a COVID positive. So you have an overlap of the diseases also. So we need to take everybody as and I'm sure our senior colleagues, Dr. Monga, Dr. Lele would agree that they are seeing COVID coming as a accidental detection with so many other conditions. So Dr. Rajan and Dr. Monga all would agree for that we must be seeing over a period of time. What are your viewpoints, sir?
Yeah.
Dr. Rajan? I can't see Dr. Rajan.
I think yes. I think perhaps dropped out, sir.
Okay. Dr. Monga, would you agree that?
Yeah. Dr. Monga or Dr. Lele, please. Dr. Monga, you're muted.
That nowadays it is very difficult to segregate patients. Even in our hospital OPD, I find that you are talking about 25%, I'll talk about 50%. Coming to your OPD will be suspect COVID patients. And the situation in Delhi at least is pretty bad. I mean, same is the case in Mumbai also. But overall, you are not able to tell which patient will turn out to be COVID, which may be negative today, will be positive tomorrow or day after. So most of the hospitals in Delhi have really started segregating that, no, this patient cannot fit into our setup. But even then, I mean, you cannot, say for sure that this is a COVID or this is a non-COVID patient. So all these things mixing up is already there.
Yeah.
Even on the roadside, you will find that 1/3 of your people walking on the road may be COVID positive, suspect or positive or asymptomatic carriers also. So all these things are happening. So I mean, we have to be very, very careful about it.
Right.
There
Thank
is,
you, Dr. Monga.
yeah, one another question which has come, which states that if by chance somebody turns out to be a COVID positive in an admitted patient, and then we shift him out, so what should we do in that room for that particular AC? Suppose he had used the window AC, what should be done for in that particular room, especially for the AC?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
And can I talk, Shankar?
Yeah.
Should I continue?
Yeah, please.
You know, these type of setups where, I mean, 20, 25 bedded hospitals, it's very difficult, except to sanitize the system completely as soon as the patient has left, and then see to it that whosoever people who have come in contact with that person, they are segregated, maybe sent for quarantine, or maybe tested later on for a COVID testing also. So all these things are happening, but Delhi has a peculiar system also, because 50 plus beds pupil, the government has said that 20% of your beds are reserved for COVID. And most of the hospitals don't have a separate entrance for COVID patients and non-COVID patients. No segregation of patients as such. The same lift is being used, the same stretcher is being used. This is a very atrocious order, but you have to live with it. And in spite of government of India guidelines that you give COVID patients the choice of treatment, I mean, they'll only go to those hospitals who have different wings or different compartments or different entry and exit points. But in spite of all the efforts of the nursing home forums, the government is not listening to it. And just because there is shortage of beds, they have said about 20% of beds have to be kept aside for COVID patients. I mean, this is ridiculous. But I mean, it's a health hazard also for workers as well as for the healthcare professionals out there.
Thank you. I think Dr. Moge, Ketan Bhai, I think we have already overrun the time. I think due to the paucity, I would request, there are multiple questions which have come in. Jitendra, if you could play that slide, you can send your questions on covid@ishre.in, and any of your queries which are there, the experts will definitely answer. There are a lot of questions which are there, what I can see in the chat box regarding various technologies. ISHRE has a fantastic platform called Searcho. I would request Jitendra to just keep that slide. Get onto this, any of the queries, any of the products that you want, they are there on that. Utilize your discrimination and utilize these products. You can get in touch with any of the experts. There will be a good idea where you can take it forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been absolutely a pleasure, I think, to have a lovely conversation today. Phenomenal efforts by COVID Task Force, phenomenal efforts that is put in by IMA, HBA and ISHRE, various committees for this to and fro, I mean, including Apex Advocacy Committee, including your marketing committee, including, Dr. Ketan and Dr. Rajan and Dr. Lele, who have continuously, Dr. Moge, who have continuously given to and fro, points which have come, and this lovely documents have come in. These are guidelines, utilize to your discrimination, and you can take it forward. Ketan Bhai, would you like to put in any, and a special thanks to these lovely panelists who have tried and answered many of the questions. Ketan Bhai, anything specific?
Thanks, Nir. So probably there are still a lot of questions which we could not take it, but probably, over a period of time, you can ask those queries to the panel, which is the email has been put. It can come. I would also request ISHRE that, if all our members who have or who owns a guidance in terms of their respective setup for making those minor modification, if they put their query, you can revert back and give the respective context of their respective cities, so they can make the necessary modification in their working place, be it in a clinic or a hospital, nursing home. So that would be very much helpful. And I'm really thankful to the expert team of ISHRE for guiding us. And over to Dr. Lele for the final concluding remarks, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Ketan. Dr. National President of IMA, Dr. Rajan, had to leave because of some work. But actually, our question answer session and the book release and the entire program has come so well. I take this opportunity to thank our National President and Dr. Ashokan to continuously encourage Chairman Dr. Monga and Dr. Ketan from IMA side to continuously monitor the progress of this book. And ISHRE team, President Mr. Mittal, Mihir, I've been constant touch, and Vishal and Gautam, and entire technical team, and Jitendra, I think, who was looking after the technical side of this. The question answer sessions have been very good. In fact, still the questions are pouring in. And as Mihir has said that this individual, any questions are there, they can write to ISHRE and they will give the guidance. What I was suggesting to that, based on this question answers and some other question answers which we had discussed, while leading to that, a similar book or a simple question answers, FAQs on air conditioning can be put onto the website so that anybody wants to have that, they will have an access, because individually what you write a reply to the member may be interested for some other doctor also. So similar small version, FAQs can be made after a certain period, maybe after about say 1 month, when a lot of questions are poured in. Still questions are, in fact, I got a phone calls in the morning that Dr. Maide, who is a chest physician by himself, a local, and he called me and said, I want to come in. He sent any questions. So some questions are still, they may be having. So if you can work on the release of similar question answer, FAQs, plain typical guidance book, which will be worthwhile. I take this opportunity to thank entire IMA, HBI and ISHRE team, and we look forward for your guidance continuous. And of course, we will popularize this link and the Searcho app, which you had mentioned, to on our IMA and HBI website also, wherein doctors can visit and they can take your help. Thank you, and I request Mihir and Ketan to put the scene off, and we'll come meet again after some time.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank you, everybody.
This entire session has been recorded. I mean, we'll be uploading on the YouTube, and sir, I'll forward you the link. So I think those who have not been able to join today due to their we understand all of you are extremely busy in this current adverse situation. So for benefit of all those, they can sure look at this and feel free to get in touch with us. We'll be more than happy to help any one of you. Any of these experts are always more than happy to help us. Yeah, Ketan bhai, any final remarks? And with that, we should
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Please take care. And please stay safe. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Jitendra, you can stop recording.